Hello and welcome to Love Anything Art. I'm so glad you are here. I hope you are having a fantastic week, y'all. Today I'm going to be making something a little different, but kind of the same. I'm going to be using some scrap clay to make a coaster. And look at this, guys. I am just plowing through all of my scraps. This is so wonderful. I have gone through so many. I do have this ginormous bag, and that's the one I'll be picking. I have a little bit left of all the rest of them, so I am just working my way through this. Yay! You want to just start taking out some pieces. I have some cane pieces in here. I'm actually not going to use those. Maybe I'll do something with cane in pieces for another scrap clay video, but I'm just going to take out a bunch of random scrap colors. These are like pinks, purples, blacks, some very light, I guess, greens and blues. But you can take any colors that you'd like, anything that makes you happy. And once you have them all nice and kind of chopped up, varying sizes, they don't all have to be the same. You want to lay it out into a square shape. You want to make sure that it is rather thick because of the coaster needing to be thick. I'm just kind of basing mine off of this little ceramic tile that I have. I want it to kind of be the same size as that. But you can make yours as big as you want it depending on how many scrap pieces you have. If you need to make it larger, just go ahead and add some more pieces around the edges or the rim, keeping it in that basic kind of square shape. And really scientific here, folks, I'm just going to use the palm of my hand to start flattening, and then my roller, just getting everything joined together. Now, you can technically do whatever you want with your piece. You can chop, dice, roll, smash, smush, do a combination of all of them. Basically whatever pattern you want to make. A lot of it's going to be covered up by a later step, so some of the scraps are not going to show through. You can do a total just scrap piece, making a pretty pattern out of something to make a coaster, but I'm going to use it as kind of a background to my piece. Just going to keep rolling it out. Just minding that I keep it on the thicker side. And you'll see here, it's pretty random. You could leave it like this at this point, which would be pretty cool, I think. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of stretch mine out a little bit and then fold it in half. And basically just kind of continue the process until I have the mushy mess that appeals most to my eyeballs. So you can kind of do whatever you want, just experiment and have fun. That's kind of what this project is about. I wanted to do something a little different than my other projects that I do, which is making jewelry, which I do love, but sometimes I need a break too. It's kind of like a swirly looking sky cosmic look to it in some spots. And I still have it relatively thick. If you find that yours is not thick enough, you can always put a layer of regular clay on the back or extra scrap clay. And I think this is my final little swirly patterns here. I have a couple spots on the front and the back that I like, but ultimately I'll just pick one side that will face up. I'm going to use this solid colored clay, and I'm just picking this really pretty like mint color because I thought it looked best with the pinks and the blacks and the purples. Thought it complemented those colors really nicely. So that's the reason why I chose this. You can choose any color you want and any brand you want. And that kind of rubbed off there, so I really can't read the name, but if I find it online, I will leave a link in the description box below. You'll just need a little piece, not too terribly much, because we're going to take this piece and condition it and then roll it out really, really thin. So you're not going to need a whole lot of a solid color. I did run mine through the pasta machine as thin as I could get it before it started to rip and tear. You can roll it out by hand also, just however you can to get it as thin as you can. You can make the pieces thicker also, but I think it looks really nice with it being kind of thin. And you want to make a piece that's kind of large enough that will fit over your scrap clay piece. Rolling it out again super thin on my ceramic tile. And this is how I'll bake it, so it's nice and flat. We can also push out some air bubbles if you have any in there, just with your finger by dragging the air bubble across and pushing it out one of the sides. It's not really a huge deal. After you bake it, you don't have to use the entire sheet. But once you have it all nice and set, as flat as you can on whatever you have, go ahead and bake it. And I did bake mine for like 40 minutes. And it did crack because I was impatient and was trying to get it off there before it was cooling, but that's okay. And besides that, we're going to kind of chop it up anyway, so those little pieces and cracks don't really matter. I'm going to cut down my scrap clay piece into my final shape, which is just going to be a nice even, or as even as I can get, square shape. And I cut off the section on the outside, and that actually makes a really pretty pattern. You could actually continue on and kind of play with it and maybe cut it up and do it a different way and then roll it out and then cut it into your square shape. I don't know, you can kind of just play with it and see what you come up with. That's kind of the beauty of the scrap clay. I'm going to smooth out all of the edges and seams and sides just on the top part that will face up, just so that my corners are nice and smooth and I don't cut myself after it's all nice and baked and I don't have any jagged edges. Just making it nice and smooth. And then for my green, beautiful mint colored clay, just going to take a pair of scissors and start chopping up into little sections, kind of into triangle-ish shapes. And from there, I'll cut those down even smaller and start placing them on my scrap clay. I have them kind of spaced out right now, but I will start filling in those gaps with smaller pieces. So this is kind of like a terracotta pot that's been broken and then kind of put back together. I don't know the word for it, but anyway, it's kind of looking like jagged, broken pieces on top. I kind of like it. But you can space yours out so you can see the pattern on the back with the scrap clay if you'd like, or put them as close as you want together. I'm kind of doing a combination of both. They'll be a little bit closer together, but you can still see here that the scrap clay beauty does show through the back. All those pinks, and looks like there's some yellows in there too, and the blacks and the purples. Once you have all of your broken pieces in place, just very gently use your fingers and a roller to kind of get all of the pieces stuck down into the clay. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. I just want the two pieces to kind of adhere together. You can also take a piece of paper and use your fingers and lightly burnish it, just very smooth and fluid over the top. Don't press down. These pieces are going to be stuck or raised above the clay, the scrap clay. So I do want them raised. You can push them and embed them all the way down into the clay, but I didn't want to do that with mine. You can also flip it over. I'm just doing it on a piece of paper, and then push from the back, and this will also help get the dry clay to stick to the wet clay. Just being mindful to keep it in that square shape. And I'm going to use some of that same green color clay. Just rolled out a tube of it. Going to cut that into 4 as close to even length pieces. And then with each of those, just roll them into a very nice, evenish kind of a ball. And with each of those, I am going to flatten it. I'm using the bottom of this other clay piece that I made. You can use whatever you have around your desk. This was the only thing that I had that was flat on the bottom, so that's why I'm kind of using it. Just making do with what I had around me. And they're kind of round, but just going to be flat, and these are going to be the feet for the coaster. And also, if you like this pattern, I did make this in the previous video. I'll leave a link below for you. I got all my pieces. I am going to put a little bit of Bacon Bond, my extremely old but still quite useful Bacon Bond that I've had for like 3-4 years now. It's still good. Just put a little dab on each of those and then use your fingers and kind of get it all smushed around there. I'm going to place that on the back side of my coaster, and I do have my coaster sitting on a tile, and there's a piece of paper in between the tile and my coaster. That's so that my tile doesn't make my coaster shiny because it's a slick surface. So I will leave that on there while I'm baking. Just making sure that those little feet are nice and in place on there before I pop that in the oven to bake it. Time to bake. And this is mine. I am done. You can resin yours if you want to resin yours. I like the way this looks. Very natural, organic, very natural clay. These are all sides. You can see it's kind of raised up there all along. And I really like the pattern on the outside, and it's got a cool little pattern on the bottom too, and then my little feet. And I will use this for a vase that I have on my table that has some dried flowers on it, and it's a red vase, so it's gonna go really nicely with this little coaster I made. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!